The little girl was the first thing he saw. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her hair, long and tangled, clung to her pale face in damp strands. A torn pink dress hung from her fragile shoulders, its hem stiff with frost. She was crouched against the frozen wall of the cavern, clutching a ragged teddy bear so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Her breath came in shivering clouds and her lips were cracked, bleeding at the corners. The storm outside raged like an animal, howling through jagged holes in the rock. Snow poured down in a white curtain, sealing them into the hollow they had stumbled upon minutes ago. The blizzard had swallowed the world, and yet here she was, weak, injured, abandoned, eyes wide with the kind of terror no child should know. Beside him, his dog let out a low, uneasy whine. "Easy, Shadow," the soldier murmured, resting a trembling hand on the German shepherd's thick neck. The dog pressed close, ears pricked, amber eyes fixed on the girl. The soldier, Daniel Cole, though few people used his name anymore, moved slowly, careful not to spook her. His body ached with the memories carved into his scars, a shattered knee from shrapnel, the constant sting of cold where skin grafts stretched across his side, and the invisible bruises of sleepless nights. The cave was bitter with ice, but for him the real chill came from the familiar sound that echoed in his ears, the keening wind, just like artillery screaming over dunes half a world away. He swallowed hard, forcing himself back to the present. The girl's eyes darted between him and the dog. She didn't speak. She only curled tighter around the teddy bear, as though it was the only thing keeping her tethered to life. Daniel knelt, laying his gloves on the ground to show his hands were empty. Shadow lowered his head too, sensing the tension, his breath visible in the cold air. "It's all right," Daniel said softly. His voice cracked. It had been weeks since he'd spoken more than a handful of words at a time. "You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." The child blinked, and for a heartbeat Daniel thought she might believe him. But then her thin shoulders shook, and she whispered something so faint he nearly missed it. "Please." Her voice was ragged, hollow. "Please save my brother, even if I can't live." Daniel froze. The words hit him harder than any explosion he'd ever survived. They cut through the blizzard, through the cave, through the years he had tried to bury beneath silence. He had heard countless cries for help on the battlefield, comrades begging for mothers, for mercy, for time. But never had he heard a plea so small, so impossibly fragile. "Brother?" he echoed, his throat tight. The girl nodded weakly. "He's out there." Her eyes flickered toward the storm. "He's little." They left him, left us both. "I tried to keep him warm, I tried—" Her words broke into a sob that twisted into a cough. Daniel's instincts screamed, a child, alone, exposed in the storm. He looked to Shadow, whose tail stiffened with a low growl. The dog's training surged to the surface, ears twitching, nose lifting, body taut with alertness. Shadow smelled something, someone. Daniel's chest constricted. He had no family left, his wife gone, unborn child gone, comrades buried under desert sand. And now, staring at this girl, he saw the shadow of everything he had lost. The trembling teddy bear in her arms might as well have been his daughter's, if she had lived. He reached into his jacket, pulling free the only warmth he carried, a scarf, worn and frayed at the edges, his late wife's. He hesitated, his hand trembling, then wrapped it gently around the girl's shoulders. She stiffened, but did not pull away. "We'll find him," he said firmly, though inside he was anything but certain. "You have my word." The girl's eyes met his at last, searching for truth. And in that moment, Daniel knew, if he failed her, he would never forgive himself. Outside, the storm screamed louder, snow pounding the earth in thick sheets. Shadow barked once, sharp and urgent, his nose pressed toward the cave's mouth, then back to Daniel. A signal. Daniel inhaled sharply. The child's brother was out there, somewhere in that frozen chaos. He tightened the straps on his pack, checked the sidearm at his belt, and lowered his goggles over his eyes. His pulse thudded against his temples like a war drum. "Stay here," he told the girl gently. "We'll bring him back." But her tiny hand shot out, gripping his sleeve with desperate strength. "No," she whispered, eyes wide with dread. "He'll die if you don't hurry." And they'll come back. The word was a knife in the air. Her lips pressed shut. She buried her face in the teddy bear, refusing to say more. Shadow growled again, fur bristling. Daniel looked into the storm. His PTSD clawed at him. Snow became smoke. The howling wind became gunfire. The shadows became insurgents lurking in alleys. His chest tightened, his vision blurred. He nearly stumbled, but Shadow nudged against him, grounding him with steady weight. "I'm fine," Daniel whispered to himself. "I'm fine." The girl's whisper echoed in his skull like a prayer. "Please save my brother, even if I can't live." He clenched his fists, jaw locked. "We're going," he told Shadow, and the dog barked once in answer. Daniel turned back to the girl. "Stay here. Keep the scarf on. We'll come back." Her tears caught the glow of his headlamp, shimmering like fragile crystals. "Don't leave me alone too long," she whispered. The storm outside roared, daring him to step into its jaws. Daniel braced himself, Shadow at his side, and together they plunged into the blizzard. Behind them, the girl's final whisper chased him into the dark. "Please, don't send me back." The storm swallowed them whole. Snow slashed across Daniel's face like shards of glass, his goggles barely keeping the world from blinding white. The wind screamed through the mountain pass, a voice so raw it seemed alive, mocking, warning, daring him to keep walking. His boots sank deep into drifts, each step dragging him closer to exhaustion. But shadows surged ahead, black fur dusted with flakes, tail high, body taut. The dog's nose worked the storm, pulling invisible threads of scent out of the chaos. "Find him!" Daniel urged, voice muffled by his scarf. "Find the boy!" Shadow barked once, sharp and certain, before plunging into the curtain of snow. Daniel's knee throbbed with every step. His old wound screamed, but he forced his body forward, leaning on muscle memory carved into him by years of deployments. One foot, then the other. Breath in, breath out. Ignore the cold, ignore the pain. The blizzard carried whispers, not real ones, but the echoes that never left him. The battlefield always followed. "Cole, cover me! I'm hit! Tell my mum!" He shook his head violently, snow scattering from his helmet. "Not now, not here. Focus." Shadow slowed, nose pressed to the ground, circling. Then the dog froze, head snapping toward a mound half buried in snow. He barked again, this time urgent, insistent. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. He stumbled forward, dropping to his knees beside the drift. His gloved hands clawed through the snow until he uncovered fabric. A child's coat. "God," he breathed, pulling harder. The small body beneath was limp, motionless. The boy couldn't have been older than 4. His face was pale blue, lips cracked, lashes frozen together. Tiny fingers clutched a scrap of paper, crumpled but protected in his fist. Daniel ripped off his glove and pressed 2 fingers against the boy's neck. Nothing. Panic clawed up his throat, but he pressed harder, desperate. A flicker. A faint, fragile pulse. "He's alive," Daniel gasped, voice raw. Shadow barked once, circling close, pressing warmth against the boy's side. Daniel stripped off his own jacket without hesitation, wrapping the child in the thick layers, tucking him close against his chest. His own body screamed at the loss of warmth, but it didn't matter. "You're not dying on me," he muttered fiercely. "Not you too." The boy stirred weakly, a broken sound rasping from his throat. Daniel's chest cracked open at the sound. He rose, cradling the child, stumbling back through the storm toward the cave. Every step felt heavier, the wind pushing him back, his breath burning ice into his lungs. Shadow stayed close, guiding him, barking over the howl of the blizzard as if to say, "This way, don't stop, don't give up." By the time they stumbled into the cave again, Daniel was shaking violently. His hands were numb, his vision swimming. He fell to his knees near the fire pit he had scraped together earlier, laying the boy carefully on the ground. The girl cried out, scrambling toward them. "Eli!" she sobbed, clutching her brother's frozen hand. "Eli, please wake up!" Daniel's body wanted to collapse, but instinct kept him moving. He stripped dry wood from his pack, struck the flint, and coaxed a flame into life. The fire roared to life, small but fierce, fighting the cold that gnawed at their bones. Shadow lay against the boy, sharing body heat. The girl curled on the other side, whispering to him through tears. Daniel rubbed the boy's chest, massaging his arms, anything to pull him back from the edge. "Stay with me, kid." Come on, minutes crawled by. Then, weak but real, the boy coughed, his chest lifted, breath rattling out in a fragile gasp. The girl sobbed harder, pressing her forehead to her brother's. "I told you I'd find you," she whispered. Daniel sagged with relief. He wiped frost from his beard with a trembling hand. His heart pounded too fast, too loud, but the boy was breathing. That was all that mattered. For a moment, the cave was quiet, only the fire crackling, the storm raging outside, and 3 broken souls huddled together in the glow. But then the girl's whisper returned. "They'll come back," she said softly, her voice so thin it barely carried. Daniel looked at her sharply. "Who?" Her eyes darted to the cave's mouth, wide with terror. She shook her head, clutching her teddy bear tighter. "Who left you out here?" Daniel pressed. His voice wasn't harsh, but it carried the steel of a man who needed the truth. She shivered. "Him." "Your stepfather?" Daniel guessed, piecing scraps together. Her lips trembled. "He said no one would care. He said no one would believe us." Daniel's stomach churned. He had seen this before, families torn apart by men who wore smiles in public and fists in private. Shadows of war were bad enough, but shadows at home could be worse. The boy stirred, opening his eyes just enough to whisper, "Don't tell," before slipping back into exhausted sleep. Daniel sat back, rubbing his face. The firelight flickered across his scarred skin. Shadow rested his head on Daniel's knee, steady and grounding, as though to remind him he wasn't alone in this. The girl's whisper returned, broken but clear. "Please don't send us back." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had no authority, no papers, no home to offer. He was just a man the world had discarded. But staring at these children, he knew one thing. He would rather walk back into war than let them be abandoned again. Outside, the storm howled louder, as if answering the challenge. And somewhere in that storm, Daniel sensed, someone was waiting. The cave had grown warmer, but Daniel couldn't shake the cold gnawing at his chest. He crouched near the fire, feeding it small sticks one at a time, his eyes flicking to the children as if to reassure himself they were still breathing. The boy, Eli, slept fitfully, his tiny body wrapped in Daniel's jacket, Shadow curled protectively around him like a sentinel. The girl sat close too, cradling her teddy bear as though it could shield her from the world. Every so often, her lips moved, whispering to herself words Daniel couldn't catch. He recognized the look. Survivors often clung to small rituals, counting breaths, repeating phrases, clutching tokens, anything to keep the dark from devouring them. Daniel rubbed at the scar on his knee, the old ache a reminder of how close he had come to never walking again. He thought of the girl's earlier words, "Please save my brother, even if I can't live. No child should speak like that. No child should even know such despair." A sound ripped him from his thoughts. Crunch, the unmistakable crack of snow compacting under boots. Daniel froze. Shadow's ears shot up, his body stiffening, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. The girl went pale. "They found us," she whispered. Daniel's pulse spiked. "Who?" But she only shook her head, pressing her teddy bear to her face. Another crunch, Closer, Daniel doused the fire with a sweep of his boot, plunging the cave into darkness. Smoke hissed upward, swallowed by the howl of the storm. He pulled his rifle from its sling, every nerve in his body screaming. Shadow stood braced at his side, teeth bared. Daniel's mind fractured under the pressure. The storm outside became a firefight in Kandahar. The crunch of boots became insurgents circling their unit. The darkness became a burning alley. His breath caught, heart hammering. His finger twitched on the trigger. "Not now," he muttered to himself, forcing air into his lungs. "Not now." Shadow nudged him sharply with his flank, grounding him again. Another crunch, then a voice, male, harsh, muffled by the storm. "I know you're in there." Daniel's stomach turned to ice. Whoever it was had tracked them deliberately. He crouched lower, motioning the girl to keep silent. She obeyed instantly, clamping a hand over her mouth, tears streaking her frozen cheeks. The silhouette of a man appeared at the cave's mouth, outlined by the swirling snow. Broad shoulders, heavy coat, a flashlight beam cut into the darkness, sweeping across the cave walls. Daniel's body tensed. He kept the rifle trained low but ready. Shadow growled softly, barely contained. The man stepped further in, his boots crunching on stone. His voice carried with cruel familiarity. "Come out, little mice. No use hiding." The girl whimpered, burying her face in her teddy bear. Daniel's blood boiled. His instinct screamed to pull the trigger, end the threat now. But he hesitated. A firefight in a cave with children so close was a death sentence. Instead, he slipped behind a jagged column of ice, Shadow moving with him like a shadow of his own. The flashlight beams swept, dangerously close. For a breathless moment, Daniel thought it would land on Eli, but it slid past, illuminating only the far wall. "Cold night for children," the man sneered. "But don't worry, I'll take them back where they belong." Something in his tone, mocking, possessive, snapped the last tether of Daniel's restraint. Memories of men laughing as they tore villages apart surged up, and his vision sharpened into deadly focus. He gave Shadow a silent hand signal. The dog lowered into a crouch, muscles quivering. The man took another step, closer now. His boots crunched louder, echoing in the cave. Daniel moved fast. He lunged from behind the ice, his rifle barrel slamming against the man's flashlight hand. The beam shattered against the wall, plunging them into near darkness. Shadow erupted forward, teeth sinking into the man's arm with a snarl. The intruder screamed, stumbling backward, trying to shake the dog off. Daniel grabbed him by the coat and drove him into the cave wall, the impact cracking like thunder. "Who sent you?" Daniel snarled, pressing the rifle against his chest. The man spat blood, struggling. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Daniel's rage flared hotter. "Then educate me." But before the man could answer, a second crunch echoed outside. Another set of boots. Daniel's stomach dropped. There was more than one. Shadow growled, refusing to release his grip. The man writhed, cursing, but Daniel shoved harder, pinning him against the wall. From outside, another voice shouted, "You find them?" "Yeah," the pinned man yelled back, voice strained. "Got company, though," Daniel cursed under his breath. The girl clutched her brother tighter, sobbing silently. He had seconds to choose, fight, flee, or die. He looked at Shadow, then at the children. There was no choice at all. Daniel slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's skull. The body crumpled to the floor, limp and groaning. Shadow released him, snarling, but Daniel signaled him silent. Then he grabbed the children, Eli limp, the girl clutching her teddy bear, and pulled them deeper into the cave. "Stay quiet," he whispered, breath ragged. Behind them, the second man's silhouette darkened the entrance. "Hey!" he shouted into the cave. "Answer me!" Daniel's mind raced. The tunnel curved deeper into the mountain. He had no map, no plan, only instinct and desperation, but anywhere was safer than here. Shadow barked once, sharp, guiding them toward the dark. Daniel carried the boy, the girl clinging to his sleeve, and together they vanished into the black heart of the cave, away from the storm, away from the footsteps, into a danger unknown. And as they disappeared, the girl whispered into the darkness, trembling, "He'll never stop. He'll never let us go." The cave narrowed to a throat of ice. Daniel hunched to keep Eli's head from scraping slick rock, the boy pressed to his chest, the girl clinging to his sleeve. Shadow threaded the darkness ahead, a moving shadow inside stone, nose low, shoulders rippling, paws careful on the uneven floor. Wind from some unseen shaft moaned through the passage, turning the tunnel into a low, constant organ note that rattled Daniel's ribs. Behind them, a distant shout bounced off the walls. The second man, hunting. "Keep your hand on my jacket," Daniel whispered to the girl. "Don't let go." "I won't," she breathed, and he felt the tremor of her fingers through the fabric. The tunnel dropped suddenly into a slope. Daniel's boots slipped. He planted a hand on the wall, grit biting his palm through the glove. Shadow halted at the lip and looked back, ears pricked. The dog stepped sideways, then pawed once at a darker seam in the ice, signaling a path around the worst of it. "Good boy," Daniel murmured. He trusted Shadow's judgment more than his own footing. They edged along the narrow ledge, backs scraping rock. 30 feet below, the slope ended in a black basin. The ice there didn't look solid, it looked hungry. The wind died. In the hush, Daniel heard a small sound near his heart, paper crackling. He glanced down. The boy's fist, stiff from cold, was clenched around the same crumpled scrap Daniel had seen in the snow. Eli's fingers loosened at last, exhausted. The paper fell. The girl gasped, lunging, but Daniel snagged it with his free hand, nearly losing his balance. He flattened against the wall until the tremor in his legs passed, then slid the scrap into a pocket. Not now, later. They reached a lip where the tunnel leveled. The rock underfoot gave way to boards, old, splintered, half frozen into the floor. "Mining timber," Daniel said. "How do you know?" the girl asked, voice small. "Used to see it on training exercises," he said. "Abandoned shafts restabilized with old boards. It means we're near a cut-through. If we're lucky, maybe a maintenance door." The word lucky sounded foreign in his mouth. Shadow stopped again, head canted. Daniel stilled, faint but real, the scrape of boots far behind, then a muffled curse. They were taking the same path. He had minutes. He crouched to set Eli down gently on the boards. The boy's breath ticked at his lips now, more steady than before. The girl knelt, laying the teddy bear on Eli's chest like a blanket and smoothing the worn fur with reverent hands. Even in the dark, Daniel saw the bear's seams were uneven. Someone had stitched it up in a hurry. A jag of thread stuck out, glinting like a needle in his headlamp's weak glow. Shadow's ears flicked. He padded to a black seam in the wall, vertical, straight. He nosed it, then backed up, looking at Daniel. "A door," Daniel breathed. It was a service hatch, ancient, iron-rimmed, edges sealed with ice like a scab. Daniel wedged his shoulder into it and shoved. The ice shrugged him off. He set his jaw and pushed again, pain flaring hot across his scar. "Move, move, move!" He threw his weight. Metal screamed. Ice cracked along the edge like breaking bone. The hatch lurched open half an inch. Boots above. A beam of light knifed down the tunnel, still far but bright in the dark. Daniel didn't think. He put his back to the hatch and heaved, every tendon in his neck straining. Shadow braced and shouldered into the gap with him, adding canine leverage. The crack became a line. The line became a mouth. The hatch gave with a thunderclap that seemed to shake the mountain. Freezing air rolled over them from the other side, cleaner somehow. He wrenched the door wide enough for Shadow to slip through, then lifted Eli and passed him in. The girl squeezed through after her, then stopped. "My bear," she whispered. Daniel reached back, grabbed the teddy by its leg, and the leg tore off in his hand. The girl stifled a cry. "I'll fix it," he whispered, even as he shoved them forward. "I promise." He ducked through last and dragged the hatch shut, leaning his weight to settle the warped iron. In the dim corridor beyond, a filament bulb hummed within a wire cage, throwing a jaundiced puddle of light over concrete. He caught a stenciled warning faded by time. "Maint. Access. Ranger District 12. A maintenance tunnel. Government. Civilization. inches beneath the mountain's skin. He set Eli against the wall and turned to the girl. She stared at the bear's torn leg in his hand, lower lip trembling. He knelt, broke a strip from his own inner thermal and wrapped it around the tear like a bandage to keep stuffing from spilling. "I'm sorry," he said. She swallowed. "It's okay. He's been hurt before. What's his name?" She blinked, surprised by the question. "Captain." "Captain's tough," Daniel said. He placed the patched bear back in her arms and only then realized the loose seam along the torso wasn't just sloppy. It was deliberate. Someone had opened the bear and stitched it closed. He looked closer. There were 2 threads, one bright, one darker. Different hands. "Who fixed Captain for you?" Daniel asked softly. "My real dad," she said, the words a breath. Before he went away?" "Do you know his name?" Daniel asked, heart kicking. She nodded. James Rourke." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. James Rourke. Rourke had been in Daniel's unit in Afghanistan, lanky, fast with a grin, a medic who could thread a needle in a sandstorm. He carried a deck of cards and a photo that he kept in his chest pocket like a talisman. A baby girl swaddled in a hospital blanket, a woman beaming, a newborn fist up like a fighter. Rourke's letters had been a lifeline for the platoon. He'd been killed in a convoy rollover 2 months after that photo was taken. Except a drop of ice slid down the back of Daniel's neck. He set Captain gently on his knee and, with the care of a bomb tech, felt along the rough seam. His fingers found a lump under the stuffing, thin, rigid. He tugged the darker thread with a nail. The seam opened. Inside was a tiny plastic sleeve. In it, a folded photograph, a hospital band, and a strip of paper so narrow it looked like a fortune from a cookie. Daniel's lungs forgot how to work. He slid the paper out. On it, in Rourke's blocky hand, "If anything happens, find Cole. Trust Cole." A number followed, Daniel's old P.O. box, long closed. Beneath that, 2 words, "Church Ledger." The bulb overhead hummed louder. Somewhere behind the hatch, footsteps thudded, closer now. The girl's eyes were not on the paper. They were on the photograph pressed half out of its sleeve, her mouth parted like she'd seen a ghost. Daniel eased it free. It was the picture he remembered, a woman, exhausted and incandescent, a baby with a fist raised, the father's gloved hand within the frame, cradling both like a vow. Except the margin held another image, cropped in every subsequent print he'd seen. James Rourke stood in scrubs, and beside him a man with a pastor's collar, hand on James's shoulder. The man was smiling. Daniel knew that face too, Reverend Caleb Ellison, Grey Ridge's most beloved moral compass. "Is that him?" Daniel asked, keeping his voice level. "Your pastor?" The girl nodded, eyes huge. "He said Daddy signed papers." He said, "Mommy made mistakes, and we had to listen to my stepfather because the church said so." Because of forgiveness, Daniel's stomach curdled. The strip of paper in his hand, church ledger, might as well have been a detonator. Behind the hatch, a palm slapped iron. The handle rattled. Shadow moved to the door and braced, a low thunder in his chest. Daniel gathered the papers and slid them back into Captain's belly, then restitched the seam with the bright thread, cinching tight with a knot only Rourke would recognize. He pressed the bear into the girl's arms. "This is proof," he said. "You keep Captain safe. No one takes him from you. Not ever, understand?" She nodded, tears filling her lashes. The handle rattled harder. A voice snarled, muffled metal turning consonants to knives. "Open it!" Daniel thumbed the safety on his rifle. "We move!" Now the maintenance corridor ran 2 directions. One side sloped deeper, the other climbed. On the wall, a flaking arrow pointed up. "Ranger hut, 300 yards." "Up!" He scooped Eli back into his arms, then started at a loping half-run, boots slapping concrete. Shadow paced backward for 3 steps, guarding the hatch, then spun and bounded ahead, checking corners, pausing at intersections. The corridor widened, then narrowed. Overhead, bulbs sputtered and hissed, in one pool of light, in the next pool of shadow. They could have been ghosts in an artery of the mountain. "Do you know Reverend Ellison?" the girl whispered as they ran. Daniel kept his breathing even. "I know of him. He smiles at everyone," she said, as though confessing a crime. "But when Mommy died, he came with the papers. He said Daddy's money from the army had to be managed, or we'd be hurt. He said my stepfather would take care of us, and then things got worse." "How did your mother die?" The question tasted like salt. The girl's breath hitched. "The hospital said pneumonia." A pause. "But she told me to keep Captain safe. She said there was a letter inside for someday. I didn't know it was real. I thought it was a game." Daniel swallowed. Rourke's careful block letters burned in his mind. Trust Cole. He had failed men before. He would not fail their children. They hit a steel door with a frost-glazed window. On the far side, snows swirled under a floodlight, illuminating a squat cinder-block hut, half buried in drifts, a ranger station, low and sturdy against the weather. A generator coughed somewhere. An antenna rose from the roof like a question mark drawn against the storm. Daniel shouldered the door. It stuck, then gave with a crack. Cold slapped them. Shadows surged into the white, then pivoted to face them tail high, reading the clearing with those burning amber eyes. They slogged the last 10 yards, and Daniel shouldered the ranger hut door. Inside, a desk with a cracked radio, a map pinned with brass tacks, a metal first aid box, 2 wool blankets folded with military neatness, civilization, however small. He laid Eli on the desk, peeled his jacket back to check the boy's color. Less blue now, thank God. He grabbed a blanket, wrapped the boy. Shadow leapt lightly onto the floor by the desk, front paws braced, his warm breath fogging the air by Eli's cheek. The radio. Daniel flipped switches, adjusted dials. Static growled, then sharpened, then a voice bled through. "District 12, we read you over." "This is Cole," Daniel said, the name scraping his throat. "I've got 2 miners, hypothermic, pursued by hostile individuals. Request immediate response, medical and law enforcement. Copy." The radio stuttered. "Roads unstable. Closest unit 30 minutes. Identify yourself, Cole." "Former Army Staff Sergeant Daniel Cole. K-9 handler. Shadow is with me." A pause. Then another voice, drier, older. "Well, Cole, this is Sheriff Bolton. Hold tight. Sending a snowcat and 2 deputies. Over Bolton. A decent cop in a town that didn't always deserve one." Relief made Daniel light-headed. He set the mic down. The girl stood very still while watching him. "Will they make us go back with him?" she whispered, so soft he almost missed it. "Not if I can help it," Daniel said. Before he could say more, the radio crackled again with a new voice, slick as oil. "District 12, be advised. Reverend Ellison here. We've had a tragic misunderstanding. A veteran named Daniel Cole has taken 2 children in a weather event. He's under stress, likely confused. He needs help. The stepfather has filed paperwork. Guardianship is lawful. Daniel went cold from the inside out. Sheriff Bolton came back sharp. "Reverend, you're not on my frequency. Get off the line." But Ellison's polished assurance kept pouring. "Please treat Mr. Cole as a crisis subject for everyone's safety. The children will be safest returned to their guardian immediately. We'll resolve the rest at the church." The girl made a sound like something breaking. Daniel lifted the mic, forcing his voice to steel. "Sheriff, this is a fraud ring using church cover. I have evidence. Repeat, evidence." Rourke left it. "It implicates Ellison's silence." Then, "Cole, can you hold for 30 minutes?" "I can hold," Daniel said, "but they're in the tunnels, Sheriff." As if on cue, a thud shivered the hut, something hitting the outside door. Shadow's head snapped up. The girl grabbed Captain and pressed close to Shadow's shoulder, her face buried in fur. "Cole," Bolton said, voice clipped now, "lock in. We're coming." Daniel dragged a steel filing cabinet across the door as a makeshift brace. Shadow planted beside it, hackles high. The girl lifted her head. A whisper, almost not sound at all, slid out of her. Daddy wasn't dead. He tried to come home. Reverend said, "Daddy left us." Daniel looked at her, the pieces burning as they slid into place. The convoy didn't kill Rourke. A paper trail did. A signature did. A lie dressed in Sunday best. Outside, tires whined in snow, headlights carved through the white, too close to be Bolton's snowcat. Daniel chambered around. Shadow's growl rose, a living wire. "Stay behind the desk," Daniel said. "Don't move until I say." The girl nodded, clinging to Captain, eyes huge. The door shook under a heavy blow. Wood splintered. And under the violence, under the storm, the girl whispered, not pleading now, but promising, the smallest ember of something fierce igniting at last. "Please save my brother, and this time I will live." The door buckled inward, wood cracked, hinges groaned. The filing cabinet skidded half an inch across the linoleum, despite Daniel's weight braced behind it. Shadow barked, a savage thunder that filled the hut. The dog's body quivered with readiness, muscles coiled like steel springs. Another slam, the hinges squealed. A voice, too close, too confident, cut through the storm outside. "Daniel Cole!" The drawl was sharp with false civility. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Hand over the kids, and this ends without blood." Daniel pressed his back harder against the cabinet. His hands shook, though not from the cold. Gunfire echoed in his skull, flashes of sand and blood, and screams. Kandahar, Fallujah, the convoy ambush. His chest clenched, breath ragged. "Not now. Stay."
"Here! Stay now!" Shadow nudged his thigh, grounding him with that steady, warm presence. Daniel drew a long breath. "Not yours to take," he shouted back. The girl peeked up from behind the desk, her arms wrapped around Captain the Bear. Eyes wide, she whispered, "That's him. That's my stepfather." Her words were blades. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle. "Last chance," the man outside barked. The window to the left exploded inward as a boot crashed through the glass. A gloved hand reached in, fumbling for the latch. "Shadow!" Daniel snapped. The German shepherd launched like a missile, teeth clamping down on the intruding wrist. A scream tore through the storm as Shadow wrenched violently, blood splattering the glass. The hand vanished. Gunfire cracked back, bullets punching through wood, shredding the map on the wall. The girl shrieked, diving low. Eli whimpered, stirring weakly on the desk. Daniel dropped flat, dragging the girl toward him. "Stay down!" More gunfire. Splinters rained across the room. The smell of gunpowder cut through the cabin's musty air, acrid and sharp. "Sheriff's 30 minutes out," Daniel muttered to himself. "We don't have 30. The door shuddered again, then burst inward a foot before catching on the cabinet. The silhouette of a man loomed in the gap, pushing hard, grunting. Daniel raised his rifle and fired once. The shot cracked like thunder, muzzle flash lighting the hut. The silhouette dropped with a scream, scrambling back into the snow. Shadow paced in front of the girl and Eli, snarling, ears pinned flat. His amber eyes flicked between Daniel and the broken door, reading the air, waiting for the next threat. Outside, the voices regrouped. One shouted, "Don't kill the kids! We need them alive!" The words crawled into Daniel's blood like ice. "Need them alive? For what?" The girl's whisper trembled behind him. "He said they'd take us away. That no one would ever find us again." Daniel turned, his face grim. "Not while I'm breathing." From the desk, Eli stirred again, coughing weakly. His small fist opened, dropping the hospital band from the teddy bear's hidden pocket onto the floor. Daniel scooped it up without thinking, tucking it into his vest. Every shred of proof mattered now. A sharp thud against the back wall made Daniel spin. Someone was circling. They weren't giving up, they were surrounding the hut. He scanned the room. The only exits, the battered front door and a small rear window nailed shut with boards. "Shadow," he said low. "Rear." The dog darted to the back, teeth sinking into the boards, ripping splinters free. Daniel hauled the desk aside, swept Eli into his arms, and motioned the girl over. "We're not waiting to die in here. But no buts." His voice cut like steel. "Do you trust me?" Her lip quivered. Then she nodded once, clutching Captain to her chest. The
last board snapped loose under Shadow's pull. Daniel shoved the window open. Snow whirled in, fierce and cold. "Go!" he hissed. Shadow leapt first, vanishing into the storm. Daniel pushed the girl through next, her small body tumbling into the snow, scrambling up again fast. Then he passed Eli carefully, lowering him to her waiting arms. Gunfire shattered the front window behind them, spraying glass. Daniel rolled through the opening last, landing hard on his bad knee. Pain ripped up his leg, white hot, but he bit it down. Shadow barked once, urgent, already bounding toward the tree line beyond the hut. Daniel scooped Eli back up and grabbed the girl's hand. "Run!" They plunged into the storm, snow waist-deep, wind tearing at their faces. Bullets cracked behind them, thudding into drifts. Shadow zigzagged ahead, leading them through the white chaos. Daniel's lungs burned, his scars screamed. His mind fought to stay in the now, not in the sand. Every breath threatened to collapse into memories, but the girl's hand in his, small and fierce, anchored him. They reached the tree line, branches heavy with ice. Daniel shoved them through, ducking low, using the forest as shield. The girl gasped, clutching Captain tighter. "Where do we go?" Daniel scanned the white maze. His mind pulled fragments together. The Ranger map, District 12's trails. "There's an old bridge a half-mile east, if we cross before they cut us off." Shadow barked ahead, as if confirming. A gunshot cracked. Bark exploded inches from Daniel's head. "They're flanking!" he shouted. He pushed the children behind a fallen log, dropping low as bullets chewed snow around them. His rifle barked twice in reply. A scream carried faintly in the storm. The girl pressed against him, eyes wide. "Will the sheriff find us?" Daniel forced his voice calm, though adrenaline roared in his ears. "If we stay alive long enough." She swallowed hard. "Then I'll be brave." Her whisper cut through the storm, sharp as a blade, and for the first time, Daniel believed she could. Shadow growled, ears forward, pointing east. The bridge, their only chance. Daniel lifted Eli again, his muscles burning. "Move!" he rasped, pushing forward through the trees, Shadow clearing the path, the girl at his side. Behind them, voices grew louder. The hunt wasn't over, it had only just begun. The forest thinned, spitting them out into an open clearing where the storm swirled like a living wall. Shadow barked ahead, his body angled toward the east. Daniel's memory of the Ranger map tugged at him, half a mile, maybe less. Through the haze of snow he saw it, a narrow bridge, spanning a ravine, its wooden planks rimed with ice, cables sagging under decades of weight and neglect. The abyss below was a maw of shadows, the sound of rushing water muffled under the storm. The girl clutched his sleeve, staring at the bridge. "It looks broken." "It'll hold," Daniel said, though even he wasn't sure. His breath smoked from his mouth, his chest heaving under Eli's weight. "It has to." Behind them, gunshots cracked through the trees. Voices cursed, too close. Shadow growled, circling back, ears pinned flat. Daniel's heart hammered. "We're out of time." He crouched by the girl. "Listen to me." "Stay right behind Shadow, one step at a time. Hold the rope. Don't look down." She nodded, though tears shimmered in her lashes. "What about Eli?" "I'll carry him." He shifted the boy higher against his chest, pulling the scarf tighter around his tiny body. Eli stirred weakly, lips moving with faint words Daniel couldn't catch. The bridge creaked as Shadow stepped onto it first, paws light, body low. The dog tested each plank before committing weight. Daniel followed, boots crunching on ice, every fiber of his body screaming at the void yawning beneath. The girl stepped after him, knuckles white on the rope. The bridge swayed under the wind, snow lashed sideways, blinding. "Don't stop," Daniel barked. Halfway across, a shot rang out. Wood splintered near his foot. The bridge jolted. The girl shrieked, nearly slipping. Daniel's free hand shot back, catching her wrist. "Hold!" voices shouted from the tree line. A flashlight beam cut through the storm, jerking wildly. Shadow barked, charging forward on the bridge to urge them faster. Daniel gritted his teeth and pushed forward, dragging Eli and the girl with him. Every step was agony, the ropes groaning, planks cracking. Another shot. This one slammed into the support post at the far end. The cable twanged like a guitar string, then snapped free with a scream of metal. The bridge lurched sideways. The girl screamed. Eli's body slipped in Daniel's arms. His knee buckled. For one dizzying second, they dangled over the abyss. Shadow lunged back, teeth clamping onto Daniel's sleeve. The dog braced, muscles straining, holding them steady as Daniel clung to the rope with one hand, the boy in the other.
"Don't let go,"
the girl sobbed. "Not planning to," Daniel growled through clenched teeth. His scars burned like fire. His body screamed for release. Not again, not another loss, not another promise broken. With a roar, he hauled himself upright, Shadow's strength anchoring him. He shoved the girl forward. "Go!" Now! She scrambled the last 10 feet, tumbling onto solid snow at the far side. Shadow released Daniel's sleeve and bolted after her, then spun, barking furiously at him to move. Daniel staggered the final yards, boots slipping, every step a war. The bridge groaned, cables snapping one by one. He dove forward, throwing Eli and himself onto the bank as the structure gave way behind him. The bridge tore free with a scream of wood and metal, collapsing into the ravine in a storm of splinters. The echo rumbled long after it was gone. Silence fell, save for the storm and the rasp of their breathing. The girl crawled to Daniel, throwing her arms around his neck. "I thought we were going to die," she whispered. "Not today," Daniel panted, clutching Eli tighter. Shadow pressed close, licking Daniel's hand once before turning his gaze back to the forest they had left. The dog's hackles stayed raised, a silent warning. The danger wasn't over. Daniel laid Eli gently in the snow, checking his pulse. Weak, but there. His small lips moved again, whispering something broken. Daniel leaned close. "What is it, son?" Eli's breath ticked. "Daddy said ledger." His tiny hand twitched toward the teddy bear clutched in his sister's arms. "Church lied." Daniel's blood ran cold. The word ledger matched the slip of paper in Captain's belly. The girl's face crumpled. "He knows too," she whispered. "They made us swear never to say, but Daddy wrote it down. He said the church wasn't helping. They were stealing. From soldiers' families. From us." Daniel's jaw tightened. Fraud, inheritance theft, death benefits twisted into profit. He had seen corruption in the ranks before, but never like this, weaponized against children. He sat back, staring at the storm. Ellison, the stepfather. The whole damn town looked the other way. The girl hugged Captain closer, her voice shaking. "If they take us back, we'll disappear." Just like Mommy Daniel swallowed hard. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from fury. He had promised Rourke once, "I'll watch your back." He had failed on the battlefield. He would not fail here. A distant engine rumbled through the storm. Not the snowcat, it was too soon. Headlights cut across the tree line, searching, growing closer. The girl's eyes went wide. "It's him." He followed us. Daniel's instincts screamed to move, but his body was breaking. His scars flared. His breath rasped. He couldn't outrun trucks, not with 2 children. Shadow barked twice, sharp and insistent, pointing back into the deeper woods. A new path, a chance. Daniel gathered Eli again, wincing at the strain, and met the girl's gaze. "This ends tonight," he said, voice low and raw. "One way or another." The headlights pierced the storm, sweeping the clearing. A voice roared from a loudspeaker, cold and triumphant. "Daniel Cole, you're under arrest for kidnapping. Hand them over, or you all freeze out here." The girl's whisper rose over the wind, shaking but defiant. "He's lying. Daddy never left us. He was killed for knowing too much." Daniel's heart pounded. In that whisper was the truth he had dreaded and the vow he had no choice but to keep. Shadow growled, bracing for the fight to come. The storm closed in, heavy and merciless. The final confrontation was coming, and none of them would walk away unchanged. The headlights swung like scythes across the clearing, cutting through the storm. 2 trucks ground to a halt at the edge of the trees, engines snarling, doors slammed, figures spilled out, dark shapes against the snow, rifles cradled in their arms. "Cole!" the loudspeaker bellowed again. "Step away from the kids!" "You're sick, soldier. Let us take them back where they belong." Daniel crouched low in the snow, Eli in his arms, the girl pressed against his side, clutching Captain. Shadow stood at the front, tail rigid, ears pinned, growl reverberating through the cold like a warning from the earth itself. Daniel's heart pounded too fast, his breath hitching. The storm around him dissolved into another storm. The desert night, tracers cutting the sky, men screaming in his headset. His vision blurred, past and present crashing together. Ambush, convoy down, blood in the sand. "Cole, cover me!" He faltered, his knees buckling. "Daniel!" the girl hissed, shaking his sleeve. Her eyes were wide, terrified, but clear. "Stay here. With us. Please." Shadow nudged his thigh, insistent, pulling him back to now. Daniel forced a breath through clenched teeth. Not again. Not this time. He raised his rifle. The first man stepped forward from the truck beams, broad-shouldered, familiar. The stepfather. His smile was a cruel slash across his face. "Easy, kids," he called. "Daddy's here." The girl's body went rigid. "You're not my daddy," she whispered, voice like glass. The man's smile slipped. "Ungrateful little—" "Shut your mouth," Daniel snarled. His voice cracked like ice breaking. Another figure joined the stepfather, moving slower, more deliberate. Reverend Ellison. His clerical collar glowed pale in the headlights, his expression solemn, like a man offering prayer. "Sergeant Cole," he said smoothly, "you've been through so much. We all respect your service, but trauma warps judgment. These children belong with family. They belonged with James Rourke." Daniel shot back. His voice shook, but fury steadied his aim. He pulled Captain from the girl's arms just long enough to yank the hidden seam open, pulling the folded photograph free. He held it high so the headlights caught it. He left proof, he knew, and you buried him with lies. For the first time, Ellison's composure cracked. His eyes flashed with something sharp, dangerous. "That's enough," the stepfather barked. He raised his pistol, pointing straight at Daniel. Everything slowed. Daniel shifted Eli behind him. The girl cried out, reaching. Shadow leapt forward with a snarl just as the gun fired. The shot cracked like thunder. Shadow slammed into the stepfather, teeth sinking deep into his gun arm. The pistol went wild, another shot blasting harmlessly into the snow. Men shouted, scattering. The storm turned into chaos, muzzle flashes, smoke, the dog's growls, the girl screaming. "Shadow!" Daniel roared. The stepfather howled, swinging the pistol down. The shot struck. Shadow yelped, staggering but refusing to release his grip. Blood darkened the snow. "No!" the girl screamed. Rage ripped through Daniel's body, stronger than pain, stronger than fear. He surged forward, rifle braced, firing twice. The stepfather dropped, weapons spinning from his hand. Ellison shouted, "Hold fire!" But his men hesitated only a second before chaos reigned, gunfire spraying through the storm. Daniel dropped flat, shoving the children beneath the fallen log. Snow exploded around them, bark splintering, bullets whining past. He fired back in sharp bursts, training guiding his aim. 2 men fell, the others wavered. "Cole!" Ellison's voice boomed, fury cracking his preacher's mask. "You think you can stop this? The whole town depends on us. You're nothing but a broken soldier with a mutt." Daniel's vision blurred red. He looked at Shadow, bleeding, limping, but still standing between the children and death, growling through the pain. "Not just a mutt," Daniel growled. Ellison raised his own pistol, aiming straight at the children, then let them pay for their father's mistake. Time shattered. Daniel's PTSD surged. The convoy again, fire and blood, Rourke shouting in his ear, "Cole, cover me!" He almost froze, almost. But then the girl's whisper sliced through the noise, soft and desperate. "Please, save my brother, even if I can't live." Her words steadied him, anchored him. Daniel rose from cover, rifle steady, and fired. The bullet slammed Ellison backward, pistol flying from his hand. He crumpled in the snow, his clerical collar stark against the blood blooming beneath it. His men broke, panic scattering them into the storm, headlights swinging wildly as one truck roared to life and fled. Silence crashed down. The storm howled, but no more bullets came. Daniel lowered his rifle, chest heaving. His hands trembled violently, but he forced himself forward, scooping the children close. The girls sobbed against his chest, clutching Captain with one arm and Shadow's bloody fur with the other. Shadow whined, pressing his muzzle into Eli's face as if to check his pulse. His amber eyes met Daniel's, fierce even through pain. "You're staying with us," Daniel rasped, choking back tears. "You hear me?" "You're not leaving me too." In the distance, an engine's heavy growl approached. Not the hunters, but something slower, steadier. The snowcat. Sheriff Bolton's voice broke through the storm on Daniel's radio. "Cole, hold position. We're here." Daniel sagged to his knees in the snow, clutching the children against him, Shadow pressing close despite his wound. For the first time in years, Daniel let himself cry. Not just for Rourke, not just for war, but for the two small souls who had whispered him back to life. The storm had broken by morning. Sunlight spilled across the ranger hut as the snowcat crunched to a halt outside, its lights cutting through the pale dawn. Sheriff Bolton himself was the first to step out, his parka dusted with frost, his lined face grim but steady. Deputies followed, rifles raised until Bolton lifted a hand. "Stand down," he ordered. Daniel sat just beyond the broken bridge's ruins, children huddled against him, Shadow leaning into his side with a bloody flank wrapped hastily in one of Daniel's bandages. His arms ached from holding them all night, but he did not let go. Bolton's gaze swept the scene. The collapsed bridge, the trail of blood in the snow, the silent figures of Ellison and the stepfather lying where they had fallen. He exhaled, long and low. "God help us," he muttered. Then louder, "Get a medic here." Now deputies rushed forward, but Shadow growled low until Daniel laid a hand on his neck. "It's okay, boy. They're here to help." The children clung tighter to him as medics checked Eli's pulse and the girl's frostbitten hands. The girl whispered, "Don't take us away." Daniel bent low, his voice steady but soft. "No one's taking you anywhere without me." Bolton crouched near, his eyes sharp. "You've got something to show me, Cole." Daniel pulled Captain from the girl's arms, careful with reverence, and opened the stitched seam again. He handed Bolton the plastic sleeve inside, Rourke's photograph, the hospital band, and the strip of paper. Bolton read silently, his jaw clenched. "Ledger," he said under his breath. "You'll find it at the church," Daniel said. "Ellison kept the records." Fraud, inheritance theft, benefits diverted. Rourke tried to stop it. They killed him for it. Bolton's eyes flicked to the children, then to Daniel. "You willing to testify?" Daniel nodded once. "On record." Every word Bolton rose, straightening his coat. "Then we'll make it stick." No one buries this. Weeks later, the courthouse was packed. The community of Greyridge had come in droves, faces pale, eyes flickering with guilt and curiosity. They had heard rumors for years, turned away when whispers of bruises and neglect surfaced. Now the truth was nailed to the wall and none could claim ignorance. The prosecution laid out everything: falsified guardianship papers, church funds diverted, death benefits laundered through Ellison's charitable trust. Rourke's note, preserved in the teddy bear, was the smoking gun. Daniel sat at the front beside the children. The girl clutched Captain tightly, her chin raised high. Eli, still pale but recovering, leaned against her. Shadow lay at their feet, bandaged but alive, his head resting on his paws. His amber eyes scanned the room, ever watchful. When Daniel testified, his voice was low but unflinching. He spoke of finding the children in the storm, of the ambush at the ranger hut, of Shadow's sacrifice. He held up Rourke's photo. "James Rourke was my brother in arms," Daniel said. His voice trembled, but only with conviction. "He trusted me to protect his children. I failed him once. I will not fail them again." The defense tried to paint him as unstable, a broken veteran seeing ghosts where there were none. But the evidence was too strong. The girl herself took the stand, her small voice shaking but clear. "My daddy didn't leave us," she whispered into the microphone. He wanted us safe. They lied. He wrote it down. And Mr. Cole. He listened. The courtroom fell silent. Even the defense attorney lowered his gaze. By the end of the week, the verdict was unanimous. Fraud, conspiracy, child endangerment. Ellison's network collapsed like rotted timber. The stepfather's estate was seized, and custody granted to Daniel Cole. The final papers mattered less than the moment itself. In the courthouse lobby, Daniel knelt as the children were led toward him. The girl didn't wait for a word. She threw herself into his arms, Captain squashed between them. Eli followed, pressing his cheek against Daniel's chest. Shadow nosed between them all, letting out a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of years. Bolton watched from the doorway, his expression tired but softened. "You've got yourself a family now, Cole. Don't waste it." Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. Not a chance. That night, back at the cabin he had been renting on the edge of town, the fire glowed warm against the log walls. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the silence was not empty, but full, of laughter, of quiet breathing, of a future. The girl sat cross-legged on the rug, sewing Captain's leg back on with thread Daniel had found in an old tin. Her hands trembled, but her stitches held. Eli leaned against Daniel's side, already half asleep. Shadow lay stretched by the fire, his bandages clean, his chest rising and falling, with steady breaths. When the final stitch pulled through, the girl lifted Captain high with a shy smile. "See? He's whole again." Daniel met her eyes. "So are you." She set the bear in her lap, her small fingers tracing its patched seams. For a long moment she was silent. Then, softly, she whispered the words that had haunted him since the cave. "I'm not lost anymore." Daniel's vision blurred. He pulled both children close, Shadow pressing in to complete the circle. The fire cracked, driving shadows away. Outside, snow fell gentle, no longer a storm but a quiet blanket. A world reset. And inside, a soldier, a dog, and 2 children began the long work of healing, not by forgetting the past, but by building a new home upon it.